everybody, and welcome to the Aries 2026 horoscope, which is super exciting. Yet another pivotal and transformative year. So this is going to be a breakdown of the key themes of 2026, including a reflection of 2025. I'm also going to talk about the most important transits for 2026, as well as breaking down which month is going to be most important for what topic. I just want to say, if you're interested in the most strategic aspects for the year, broken down into aspects that are a little bit more niche, so we say, so they're not aspects that a lot of astrologers will always talk about. For example, it's not major events like Mars enters Aries. It'll be a little bit small, like Venus sextile Jupiter, for example, and how you can use these for strategic advantage as well, which is something I hold a PhD in. So I'm always handpicking these transits to what I think is going to be the most important for you. I also break down every single full and new moon as well, and how that will impact you, as well as what the meaning and symbolism of that moon is going to be. So you kind of get a holistic overview of what your year is going to be like. And if you're interested, they're on my website down below, and I've tried to keep them fairly cheap, so I don't think they're that expensive for what they are. And I spend a lot of time on these as well, so I would really appreciate any support from it as well. Because I talk about the full and new moons in that particular document, I'm only going to talk about the eclipses in this video, but I think the eclipses are going to be quite important because we have some in Pisces and Virgo again, and also now in Aquarius and Leo too. So let's begin with the key themes, because Aries is one of my favorite zodiac signs. So I think it's always fitting that I begin the zodiac series with Aries. So some of the key themes will not be a shock to you, because some of them still cross over from last year, just by the nature of there being the transits and aspects from last year coming into this year. So for example, Saturn and Neptune being in Aries, that's going to hit the key theme of your identity, because you had these in the last year, but they'll also be coming back this year from Pisces, for example, going into Aries, and they're going to stay there. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. So identity is going to be one of the big key themes for you, Aries. And I know it might feel a bit like, oh God, identity yet again, but it is one of the most important transformational aspects in your life. And I think because of Saturn and Neptune both being in Aries, it's going to be very pivotal for the world, because they'll be meeting up at a 0-degree conjunction. And I'll talk about that again in a minute, which is, it's pretty impactful, not only for you personally, but for the whole world. The second key theme is changes in finances and productivity. This is because Chiron, the wounded healer, the asteroid of trauma, is moving from your sign, your first house of identity, into Taurus, which is in the second house of income, which is going to really put a bit of pressure or pinpoint your anxieties around financial matters. And then also Uranus, which is that planet of shock and sort of like doesn't really discriminate, can go really well, really poor, depending on the the aspects it's making. That's going to be moving from Gemini back into Taurus, back into Gemini, in and out, and so that will hit finances and productivity. So those will be major themes for you as well. The third big theme, and more exciting, is that luck and growth with dating, starting and expanding a family, or just becoming your most creative and authentic self is going to be really highlighted, and you're going to have a boost because of Jupiter moving into Leo in the 5th house for you. It should be noted at the start of the year till June the 30th, that Cancer is still going to be the one that's highlighted for you, because Jupiter will be in Cancer. So you'll still have your 4th house of home and family having luck and prosperity, but then Jupiter moving into Leo will also bring a little bit more abundance into the creative, authentic self, taking more of a risk. So it's very beautiful. And of course, Leo is very dramatic and exciting as well. Then you're also going to be seeking new friends that align with your moral ideals, and this is mainly because Aquarius is a really big player in 2026, and that's your 11th house of morals and values, but also friendships, community, and building a really strong social circle. So not only will have the North Node moving into Aquarius, but you'll also have the eclipses in Leo and Aquarius too. And then you'll also be aligning your physical and mental health. That has some recurring themes from last year, 2025, because of the Pisces Virgo eclipses. So we have eclipses in Aquarius and Leo, and Pisces and Virgo. So the Pisces Virgo one, back at it again, rewind, grab reel, right? So you're still going to have some of the recurring themes of your physical health in the 6th house and your mental health in the 12th house. And actually, of course, whenever Pisces has a real highlight on it, it's always going to hit your mental health as an Aries. I just also want to point out, if it's not already obvious now, that I'm really gearing my horoscope towards an Aries rising because of the events in the houses. So if you're watching as an Aries sun and moon, just be mindful that when you're watching as a sun, it's much more geared towards your ambitions and your goals, and not always so accurate when it comes to events. If you're watching as an Aries moon, then please watch for how this will affect you emotionally, but it might not be super accurate if you're not an Aries rising. And that's why I always try to put the disclaimer that rising is way more accurate, but some people do resonate with other signs, and they do resonate with the sun, especially as they get older. And sometimes their moon sign is really very strong, depending on what other placements they have. I always say, for example, if you have like a Pisces, Scorpio, or Capricorn moon, the moon is much more powerful than the sun sign, and so you probably should be watching more for your moon sign. But everyone's different, and some people really resonate with their sun sign and they don't resonate with their rising sign. And I think that's the fun thing about playing around with astrology, that sometimes it isn't a one size fits all. For me, I'm a Sagittarius sun and I have a big Sagittarius stellium. I have a Pisces moon and I have a Capricorn rising. And I personally find that my rising sign is really, really accurate to me. But I don't resonate with Sagittarius, things that are happening event-wise, but I really resonate with Sagittarius as a personality trope. And also with Pisces moon as well, emotionally. So sometimes it's about playing around with those things. So I just wanted to put that out there now, actually, before we move on. Okay, let's move on to the most important 2026 transits. So as I mentioned, we have eclipses in both Aquarius and Leo, and Virgo and Pisces again. In Aquarius, your 11th house; in Leo, your 5th house; Virgo, your 6th house; Pisces, your 12th house. The North Node, which is currently in Pisces, will move into Aquarius. The North Node is that spiritual purpose and really gears us, the whole world, our personalities as well, into moving into more aligned spirituality. So when it moves from Pisces, which is already very spiritual, into Aquarius, which is known for community, it's known for morality. We know that Pluto is in Aquarius, affecting that and kind of bringing out the beasties and the skeletons in the closet. That's going to be really important for the whole world, and especially when there's a conjunction with that in 2027 as well. But I will point out for you personally, Aries, that this will feel like your, any current isolation that you have, any feelings around friendships or community, or feeling like everybody's so hyper individualistic, nobody cares, that you're going to be much more driven to find your community and find your tribe, as it were. And the South Node in Leo is also about letting go of a certain level of codependency in the 5th house too, and also letting go of any traumas around ex-partners, any guilt about partners, and that could be guilt through, for example, breakups, death even, just feeling there's a heaviness there in that 5th house, and also this feeling of having to be so secure that you can't be your authentic self and take a risk. So that's why the South Node in Leo and then Jupiter moving into Leo is going to be so important. And as I mentioned, Jupiter in Leo is going to be really exciting because it's going to bring an expansion to your 5th house. And so that is really fantastic when it comes to dating and children, to entertainment. Just, it always makes me think of somebody just sat on the porch with a little peach tea enjoying life, and it's like, oh, this is lovely. But I also have to be very honest as an astrologer, because it's really important, especially from what I'm learning with people telling me about Jupiter in Cancer transit currently in 2025, is that Jupiter, although it's known as a benefic, which is that it's very lucky, it is in a way a malefic too, because it expands whatever house it's in. And for example, if you have a very harsh aspect in your 5th house natally, make sure you have your natal chart pulled up as you're watching this horoscope so you can see how this affects you, especially with degrees with moons. But what's most important is that Jupiter will expand. And if it's expanding a very harsh aspect where it suggests cheating, for example, in the 5th house, then Jupiter's going to expand that energy. It's going to make like the event of an affair even worse. So it's not something to be worried about. It's not something to think, oh, okay, but it is a nuanced approach. And this is why I will take my responsibility in this, but I think astrologers need to be much more honest about what these things actually do. So we can say it's going to be lucky and amazing because it does, but it's also not something that's promised to you. It's not like a lottery draw. So it's not like, or for example, I'm going to definitely date someone because it's in my 5th house, right? But actually, it's a feeling of Jupiter's giving me a little bit of boost and a little bit of extra luck. It is not promising me anything, right? So it's always really important to be honest about how we're feeling about these things as well. The biggest thing as well is that Saturn and Neptune will be in Aries. They've kind of retrograded back into Pisces and in and out, but they're here to stay. So Neptune will be here until 2039 in your sign, the first house of self, and Saturn will be here until 2028. Take note of that if you have a natal Saturn in Aries, because this is your full Saturn return now, and that will cause very strong commitments and things of change. This is when people get engaged, married, they change houses and jobs. Some people have complete dismantlement of their lives, others really build it up. Personally, my Saturn return was fine. I didn't think it was terrible at all. If anything, it was actually quite prosperous. And mine was in Pisces. Some people had a terrible Saturn return. It really just depends on what your chart is like and who you are as a person, you know, because the chart is just a blueprint. You are who you are as a person and how you adapt to events. And I also think Pluto being in my first house of self for about 17 years, so pretty much more than half my life, kind of made me think Saturn return was basically small fry. So sometimes it's looking at the different parts of your chart and saying, it's fine, I don't really care too much. So those are the most important transits in 2026. And again, I'll talk about them more in depth soon. Okay, so let's do a small reflection on 2025. So we had the North Node in Pisces in the 12th house, the South Node in Virgo in the 6th house, and eclipses in those houses as well. We also had Neptune in Aries, went there on 30th of March 2025, and that of course will affect you as an Aries because first house of self. We also had Saturn moving into Aries 30th of May 2025. I was very worried about Saturn in Aries, and I did quite a few videos about this because I was very worried about Saturn being in Aries with conflict with Israel. And in fact, we did have a conflict between Israel and Iran, and I talked a lot about Saturn and Aries involvement in that as well, especially when we look at Saturn being in Aries at other key points of history, that it's never a good place for it to be because Saturn in Aries is debilitated and feels like it's being held back a little bit. Whereas Neptune in Aries, for example, Neptune is far too spiritual for Aries because Aries is more logical and impulsive. And so that can be very, I'm away with the fairies doing whatever I want, but it's not very good for logic and reasoning. And then when you couple that with Saturn in Aries, which is very aggressive, that really feels like I'm not thinking this thing through and I'm doing things because I feel anger, I feel rage, I feel the warrior Aries rage. And so logic kind of goes by the wayside a little bit. So those two coupled together, I have never been a big fan of. But of course, I do like Aries, and I like how it takes action, and I like how it can really galvanize people as well. We just want people to be galvanized in the right way and not in the wrong way. And by that I mean, you know, people rioting and feeling very feeling very upset about things, should we say. I was trying to think of a word, but I can't. It's on the tip of my tongue. We also had Jupiter in Cancer, and Jupiter moved into Cancer June the 9th, 2025, in your 4th house of home and family. Brings a little bit more boost or look to your family and your home life, and to also feeling very tapped into a subconscious element of your childhood and really looking after yourself with self-love, because again, Jupiter will expand that 4th house and it's actually a very hidden house. It's very cozy, but in the subconscious mind, it's a bit hidden. I always say the 4th house is actually akin to the 12th house, but we never talk about that. People say the 4th house is so beautiful. It's like, you know, warm baked goods. Yeah, it can be, but it's also, you know, a lot of difficulty, especially when you have childhood trauma up the wazoo, you know, so it's not always the easiest place for it to be. And then Uranus, I know it's Uranus, but if you know me, you know I'm going to say Uranus because I will not say Uranus and I will not be caught saying it consistently. It's Uranus, and I'll just blame it on my accent. So Uranus moved into Gemini July 7th. This is very pivotal. Uranus is the planet of shock, aviation. It tends to deal with, you know, sudden events and kind of throwing curveballs. And again, this can be either good or bad. It does not discriminate. In Gemini, I talked a lot about how this was going to be an AI revolution, how this was going to be a upskill in AI development, but it was also going to be a difference in communication, people being outed on social media much more, but people also making very prosperous careers from social media as well. Whereas Uranus and Taurus, for example, was very debilitated heavily, and we saw significant shock in the economic markets with things like investments and whatnot. And I did quite a few experiments tracking things like Nvidia and Palantir during that time to see how Uranus has changed. And I also did some experiments with communication stocks. So, for example, things like Meta, Reddit, when Uranus moved into Gemini, and saw a really big boost in investments there as well. So those are the big reflection on 2025. So the houses that were really hit for you, Aries, were the 12th house of mental health, because of Pisces being quite dominant last year, not just because of the eclipses, because of the North Node. And then also we have the South Node in Virgo and the eclipses too in the 6th house of your work environment, your productivity, and also your duty to others. And one thing I will say about 2026 is that you might feel very besmirched. That was the word I was looking for before, besmirched. That I never used that word, but it was in my head. You might feel very besmirched about, I'm really hoping that's the right word now. I should know this, but anyway, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean. Very sort of disgruntled, should we say. Disgruntled, let's use that. Very disgruntled about being on your knees for somebody else, not in that way, but feeling like you're a slave to somebody, or that you're always doing everything for everybody else and you don't get it in return. And you know that relationships shouldn't be transactional, but sometimes you kind of wish that there was a bit of give and take. And I think the eclipses last year, 2025, really helped with that. And in 2026, it will become even more apparent. Also, you'll notice that I keep saying last year 2025 like that is because I'm filming in 2025 and it's not yet 2026. So I'm trying to do it so I don't get confused in my own head, because then I'll be thinking I'm in like 2028 or something random. So I'm just doing it for my own ability to know where I am in the point of the video, basically. So just ignore me when I'm like 20, like it's like not a real concept. It's just because I'm in 2025. I'm breaking the fourth wall here with it. So in February, on the 17th, we have a solar eclipse new moon in Aquarius taking place at 28 degrees in the 11th house for you, Aries. So this is going to be obviously very pivotal because eclipses always are. They're maverick moons as well. And this is in Decan 3 of Aquarius, which is actually ruled by the moon and Venus, making it a Libra triplicity. So obviously Aquarius is ruled by Uranus and Saturn's co-rulers, but with the moon and Venus, it's much more harmonious and romantic almost, but very emotional too. I find that this particular eclipse is a little bit judgmental in the second and third decan of Aquarius, because it feels like you're waiting for something to happen, and so you're a little bit more cynical. You know, Aquariuses are ruled by Saturn and Uranus, and so it's also like the curveball energy, and then the I want to be fixed, I want commitment, and I don't really know what's going on. And because of all that together, it brings a very sort of revolutionary type of attitude. This particular decan is actually associated with the Seven of Swords, which is all about betrayal. So that card is very sneaky, it's very manipulative and sometimes Machiavellian. And actually, it's all about being resourceful. In the 11th house for you, which is about friendships, but also revolution when it comes to morals and values, community, and a sense of what you're working towards. This is about trying to really work smarter and not harder. This is where you have to outsmart your opponent. So you might find that you have some kind of betrayal, or a friend or someone in your circle, it can even be a mentor or even an acquaintance like a co-worker, is trying to pull a fast one on you, and you're like, hell no, this is making me tick, and as an Aries, I'm not doing it. So this is kind of like watching your opponent and seeing what's happening. It always reminds me of an old quote that says, never take your eye off your opponent, even when you're bowing. So even when you're bowing to them before you fight, never ever take your eye off them, because there's an element of betrayal here. Seven of Swords as well also feels like very angry. Like in tarot, it's quite literally a lion really roaring, right? Obviously opposite Aquarius is Leo, but this really feels like it's a psychological game. It's testing you, and because of that, it might feel like this is not an eclipse where, oh, I'm really coming to this kind of conclusion. It's more like, oh, I am being tested in a real battle of wits here. There's also some specific aspects here. Jupiter in Cancer in the 4th house is trining the North Node in Pisces in the 12th house. So some of those key themes there is that although that's a harmonious trine aspect, you're thinking really with your emotions here. Both Cancer and Pisces being emotional water signs, indicating emotional healing, intuition, but also knowing that something is not quite right. Gives me Dokes from Dexter vibes. So this also can be very intuitive, and it feels like you know that something is not quite right. So instead of trusting the process, you're actually being a bit more distrustful. But in the end, that's actually better for you, because sometimes, especially back in like primal days, we'd know when something was about to attack us because we would have the intuition that, wow, the lion is right behind me. The sun and the moon in Aquarius in the 11th house is also squaring Uranus in Taurus in the 2nd house, which really questions the status quo. Very strong urge to break away from what you would normally do. This feels like, I'm not going to be polite. I had a friend once that said, I always feel like we're being vaguely polite to each other. And it's like, actually, no, we need to challenge the traditions of the situation a little bit more, be more unconventional, because of course, Aquarius co-ruled by Uranus, it's always going to be a little bit in the mix. And of course, in Taurus in the 2nd house of our stability and our foundations, really kind of goes, knocks us off a little bit. So this feels like I'm awaiting something. My intuition is telling me something's not quite right. But it also feels like it didn't have to be you. I didn't really want it to be you. Why did you have to betray me like this? This is not what I want. And that influence of Uranus as well, with that spread of information as well. It's like, yeah. It could be a bit of betrayal, this one. I hate to say it, but it could be a bit of a betrayal one. Then March the 3rd, we have a lunar eclipse full moon in Virgo at 12 degrees in your 6th house. So that's in the 2nd decan of Virgo, which I always call Stalker Central. And that is ruled by Venus and Saturn, making it a Capricorn triplicity. And of course, Virgo is ruled by Mercury. But here we have the harmony of Venus and the boundary and harshness of Saturn. So it kind of balances out. So this is associated with the 9 of Pentacles, which is quite positive, but it's also what I call open heart. And because of that, it feels like I'm having to really earn somebody's love. So it's very successful. And of course, this is a full moon, so you can kind of release anything where you felt like, I've done a really good job here, I can celebrate. But because it's very hard-earned celebration as well, but you know that it's not quite as exciting as it should be because you probably sacrificed too much to get that success. And the really big theme for 2026 Aries is that you're on your knees too much, helping others when actually you shouldn't. Which is funny because Aries is the most independent of all the zodiac signs, but yet this year it feels like you're putting yourself on the grenade a little bit too much and running yourself ragged in that 6th house of physical health where you feel bloody exhausted. So in that regard, this decan is always much better at giving than receiving, but it also feels like, what did I do to deserve not feeling like I'm accepted as much as I should be? And in fact, with this full moon and the eclipse particularly, feeling like you're letting go of any rejection or feelings that this relationship or this situation or this project or whatever resonates to you is actually reciprocal and transactional. And so for you, it might feel like in the 6th house, which is also about co-workers as well, sometimes helping co-workers, and you get, they always say be careful about who you kick on the way up because, it will hit you on the way down or whatever. So it feels like for you, I can sit by and be, successful in my merrills and my merrills, my laurels and my merit, my merit and my laurels, but also it feels like there's my Sagittarius Mercury playing up, but it also feels like, a bit suspicious as well. And coming after the last eclipse as well, feels just a little bit suspicious as well. The Sun and Mercury in Pisces in your 12th house is also trining Jupiter in Cancer in the 4th house. And that, I think it's quite nice, especially because it points to quite nice manifestation. It feels like there's this bridge between the emotional aspects of Cancer, which is being enhanced by Jupiter, and then the spiritual insight that both the Sun and Mercury in Pisces is bringing, despite Mercury being debilitated in Pisces. I think that's a bit more optimistic. And so I think there's a level of compassion to this eclipse, but also a feeling of, why am I not getting the same treatment as everybody else? You're like the Oscar Piastri to the Lando Norris in F1, right? It's like, why is he getting all the treatment? This is not fair. And then Jupiter in Cancer in the 4th house is sextiling the moon in Virgo in the 6th house, which is emphasizing this need for emotional security with your home life. And again, because the 6th house deals with your routine as well, that can also be focused on daily routine, self-improvement, addressing the practical details of that moon being in Virgo, and having a natural flow with it. So strengthening family bonds during this time might be quite nice, even though it might be family that make you feel like you're putting yourself on the grenade all the time. So it's about trying to balance that a little bit. August 12th, we have a total solar eclipse, new moon in Leo, taking place at 20 degrees, which puts it in the third decan of Leo, and that is associated with the 7 of Wands. So this is in your 5th house, which is dating, creativity, authenticity, taking a risk. And this particular decan is what we call the divine right of kings, which is actually ruled by Mars, which makes it a little bit more sort of like I'm under attack and a bit more aggressive. And especially with Leo being a fire sign, it's the lion, this can be a little bit angry. This decan particularly is all about competitiveness. And it feels like, again, it's a new moon, so it's a new start. It fits well with the Mars energy of rivalry and competition, kind of defending your territory, especially when the 5th house could be like dating. You're like, get away from my man, that kind of energy. But it's also about being more forceful with what you really want to do in life, especially in a leisure pursuit kind of manner. It's interesting as well because karmically, this feels like when you stand up for yourself and you do something with a bit more anger and pep, people will respect you more because you can't just be walked all over and you're not a doormat. So in this new moon and with this eclipse, you are really going with confidence and with bright light about you, and very strong, very confident, very strong conviction as well. And making sure that you're really going after what you want with the 5th house as well. So that can be, I'm really going to ask them out. I'm going to be really brave and assertive, or I'm going to do this project and not care what people think because it doesn't have to be perfect. And I'm also going to be authentically me and the rest of them because I'm confident enough to be myself as well. And actually, as you can see from the aspects here, we have a kite formation on its side, basically. So you can see the line, it's a kite formation. There's a lot of aspects going on here. Pluto trining Venus in Venus in Libra, sorry. See what I mean? I'm all over the shop today. Pluto in Aquarius, trine Venus in Libra. See, Venus in Libra is domicile. It's where it belongs as well. So that's always a nice formation when it feels harmonious for more creativity as well, because the 5th house and then Venus being domicile in a very creative area. You also have Uranus freshly moved back into Gemini, trining Venus as well, which is bringing, interesting conversation. Funny enough, if you look more at it as well, the kite formation is not only on its side, but also there's another kite formation. If you flip it around, there's also going backwards. So we've got sort of 2 kite formations going on, which in astrology is all about really big transformation. So I feel like this one's going to be much more pivotal and a bit more aggressive and stronger than the other ones because of the nature of being in Leo. You also have Jupiter in Leo at this time as well. So Jupiter's really expanding that energy. Mercury's in Leo, which I always think is a little bit, well, do you remember that Mercury retrograde that we had in 2025? It's very aggressive because Mercury in Leo, Leo rules the heart. So everything is taken personally. So it's like, oh, you'd not just say that to me. Right, here we go. And then it's like, oh my God, it really feels like it's very angry. And of course, the nodes as well are at 0 degrees, about to move into new signs completely. Very, very pivotal new moon for you, specifically in changing the way that you see yourself in regards to your own creativity, your own passion. And when, I say this, please don't think, oh, but I'm not a creative person. Everybody's creative. When I talk about creativity, I talk about the life force of what a human being is, right? Humans are meant to create. We are meant to create. We consume way more than we create these days. And this particular moon is like, right, I got to create. That can be, I create life, right? Quite literally. I create something exciting. I can create my own piece of work. I can tell a story because Aries are really good storytellers. So this can be whatever you resonate with, but this is going to be very, very pivotal. And then Venus being opposite Neptune in Aries, which is like trying to cut through the proliferation of all these ideas and thoughts in your mind. Dreams could be very symbolic and your sleep could be all over the shop with this particular solar eclipse. I will tell you that for sure. Then August 28th, we've got a partial lunar eclipse forming in Pisces as well. Yeah, like eclipses in the Pisces. I'm a Pisces moon. It's never very easy. It's never very nice. We can see aspect wise that the kite formation is not there. It's been stripped. We can see the top half of the kite formation on the left hand side, but the rest of it's gone now. So it's kind of like it's been stripped away a little bit. So this is taking place at 4 degrees of Pisces. which actually puts it in the first decan, ruled by Saturn and Jupiter, making it a Pisces triplicity. This is in the 12th house for you, forming in the 12th house. Well, yeah, an eclipse, a mental breakdown. This is not the best energy. It's associated with the Eight of Cups, which is about walking away from something that you thought would work out. So that's when there's a lot of internal energy, therapy-wise, in that 12th house that needs to be done. So you've got to go within with this moon, with this eclipse. You've got to withdraw from work, from people, focus on what is true to you and listening to your intuition and your inner voice, because Pisces is very intuitive. Pisces is like, you will hear me, I will get obsessed with things, and also implies that this is not a very superficial energy. This is about, I have to get the real authenticity. This is bouncing off that new moon in Leo. So it really feels like you're walking away from something that you thought would work out, and almost feeling like I've got faith in a situation in my life, especially in the 12th house, but I feel hurt and I feel a little bit dejected. So I think you're going to feel very isolated on this particular moon. And the 12th house deals with things like mental health, but also things like therapy and hospitals and whatnot, mental asylums. And with Pisces, I'm like, I'm not saying you're going to be locked up in a mental asylum, don't be silly, but it definitely feels like I'm on a search for personal truth and my own spirituality. And it really feels like I'm just on a different kind of mode here. The North Node is also not in Pisces now. It's moved into Aquarius. So, you know, that North Node is not adding any of that purpose towards Pisces. So your drive is different. The North Node's in the 11th house. So that search for meaning, where the North Node would normally have supported that lunar eclipse, it doesn't anymore. So it is a little bit more challenging in that regard as well. Aspect-wise, Saturn is opposite Venus as well, which brings some constriction to your harmony and to your romance here as well. So that might make your 12th house feel more enhanced, because it's like, oh Jesus, nothing is going well for me here. Pluto trining Uranus in Gemini, but it's going to be trining Uranus in Gemini for quite some time throughout the year, so I'm not going to talk about that too much as an aspect of what this will mean for the eclipse. But you do have a couple of other things as well. The moon is squaring Uranus in Gemini as well. So there's again, that's a shocking kind of energy to your emotions as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if you feel like having a breakdown. The last Pisces eclipse that I was present for, which, because I'm a Pisces moon, I never had a crash out like that. Screaming in the car, literally, I was so angry, I couldn't believe it. I was like, what is going on? It was just really, really hitting me. So that energy can be quite difficult as well. Saturn also trining Jupiter, which is, I mean, that's generally harmonious and nice, but I always very funny about Jupiter and Saturn because they're opposites. And it just feels like trying to integrate, you know, feelings of maybe feeling a little bit shit, basically, and then feeling really good, and then trying to be like, I'm on the spiritual journey. It's like, I don't know if I've got the answers fully. So it feels like an eclipse full of dichotomies, I think, personally. So I think that's the last eclipse of the year. So I'm going to rank the months based on what I think is most important. So January is, to me, is the best month for career and authority and stamping your assertiveness on the world. February is the best month for friends and connections and doing the inner work. March is the best month to focus on physical and mental health. April is the best month for goals and productivity. May is the best month for making or increasing money. June is the best month to start a family or expand a family and consider dating somebody new. July is the best month to confront and release challenges in relationships and self-expression. August is the best month for love and relationships and releasing blockages related to this. September is the best month to focus on cultivating finances and personal goals and pursuing goals as well. October is the best month to deal with intimacy and financial issues and create long-lasting love if you're interested in that. November is the best month for exploring spirituality through and through. And December is the best month to explore new study opportunities, expand career, and plan for future investments as well. And just to note the impact of the change of nodes, the North Node moving into Aquarius in your 11th house, South Node moving into Leo in your 5th house from July 27th, 2026 to March 26th, 2028. Okay? And I've done a lot of research on this a couple of years ago, actually, because of how basically the nodes can talk about your past life relationships. And if you've ever had a soulmate in a past life, that's also in this current life as well. So the North Node in the 11th house in Aquarius is what I call rags to riches. because this is a person that has to realize they're not a king anymore. Whereas the South Node in the 5th house is memories of a king. So natally, for example, if you're having a nodal return here, then your South Node in Leo is when you were likely some kind of king or queen, or relative to a king or a queen, like you were the prince or princess, or you were some kind of advisor to a king or a queen. And in this life, you have to learn that you are not a king or a queen. You're actually like a pauper. Obviously, you're not. But what I mean with this particular nodal setup is that you have to learn that community is the most important thing. You've got to help your fellow man out. Whereas in the past life, it's like, oh, I don't care. Marie Antoinette let them eat cake. I am rich, you're poor, no one cares. But actually, this North Node is all about community. So when we couple that with Pluto and Aquarius, and then we have Saturn and Neptune in Aries, this feels like revolution and riots and a lot of anger. And I'll probably do further videos on this as time goes on as well. So I hope you enjoyed that horoscope, and let me know down in the comments what you're excited for, what you're apprehensive for. And remember, astrology is all about opportunities and looking at data patterns as well. So it is not a mystic ball that will say, this is going to happen to you, this is my prediction, because I see a lot of people saying, you promised me that I was going to get this. I never promised you anything. I will never promise you anything. I will give you the best windows and pockets of time that give you opportunity, but I'll never say you're definitely going to get this then. If I do, I'm really damn sure of it. I'm like, yeah, I can definitely see it's going to happen. But I am also an intuitive as well. I do tarot, and I can tell you energy-wise, sometimes things are like, yeah, it's pointing towards this. The astrology is pointing towards this. You got to take the action, though, because you do have free will. Astrology is just an influence. We do have free will. We can manifest. Our thoughts are projecting reality. So just be mindful of that, and don't be disheartened by any things in the year that seem a little bit dodgy. We can create our own reality. But I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, maybe give it a like, and I will speak to you soon. Bye.